I don't know if it is capable of altering our reality, because I'm not sure that we know what our reality is anymore. There are too many things that are changing our reality. We can alter reality in many ways, through drugs, through consciousness impressions, through belief systems, and of course through physiological means. So the phenomenon could use all of that to express itself if it came from the outside. If it comes from inside of us, it's even more interesting, because it forces us to raise the question of what is reality in the first place. And physics is asking the same questions now. Many physicists are asking, primarily because of experiments with entanglement of particles and entanglement of atoms, how is it that reality is really perceived by our consciousness? And to what extent do we create our reality? Is there such a thing really as space and time? So those questions come from physics. They don't come from ufology. But I think we can really learn from what the physicists are doing now. Some physicists are saying that time and space don't really exist as real entities, that they are expressed, that they emerge from consciousness taking notice of our own experiences. Now, if that's true, that certainly opens up many new ways of approaching phenomena like UFOs and other phenomena. Paracelsus and others in that era were not simply esotericists. They were scientists before there was what we know of as modern science. But modern science has to come from somewhere. And Paracelsus was primarily a physician. He was a doctor. And he was pioneering with new ways of approaching the healing of the human body. And one of those ways was to look very widely at nature and at the other forms of consciousness that may exist in nature. I became very interested in all those stories because I was getting reports from witnesses, modern witnesses, of a range of entities, a range of beings associated with UFOs that reminded me of the legends that every culture on Earth is keeping. Legends about small beings, or beings that come from the sky, or beings that come from inside the Earth that have special powers. Paracelsus writes about it, but many other authors, and of course we're keeping the memory of those observations. Those were actual observations by people that became translated into legend. And when you look into that body of data, the parallels are very obvious. And to some extent, ufology is modern folklore. Every culture has had experiences in dreams, in visions, but also in philosophy with the idea of other forms of consciousness. And there is a great temptation to project onto that consciousness some powers that will explain our human experiences. So we call these beings gods or angels or archangels or demons, depending on what we think our relationship is with them. Clearly, if you look at the Bible, the Bible is a repository of many experiences of that type, and with an interpretation in a framework that is a religious framework. But other interpretations are possible. for example, the case of Ezekiel that you mentioned is very interesting, because Ezekiel did not have any explanation for what he saw. At least that, very clear case where he describes a machine of wheels within wheels and four strange beings that he could not recognize. I don't think he called them angels. I think he called them, four different types of beings. And he was actually abducted by that machine and landed on another mountain far away. And he was very puzzled. He was so puzzled that he uses words that are very, very rare in the language to describe that machine, and the dome on top of the machine and so on. And the translation is very difficult because he uses very rare names. So to some extent, he's describing something that's very similar to what abduction witnesses are describing today.